The big thing that was going on, of course, was World War II, because this was the fall of 1944 when I started Ohio University. Everybody that was able-bodied, every male, was in the armed services. So our freshman year at Ohio University was all girls. No men on campus, just some very, very bright 16-year-olds.
It was a girls' school, and our friendships were all within girls. Within the dormitory or within sororities, it was a girls' school. So the kind of relationships that would occur in a situation like that.
Well, my sorority was Chi Omega. That was one good thing about that freshman year, with no dating and no boys on campus, is that all the sorority pledges of that year, we were all in the same boat, and we became more unified as a group rather than being competitive, as we might have been otherwise. I mean, I had an awful lot of good friends that I made that year that were pledges in other sororities that stayed good friends forever. All the women's dorms had like a lobby in a hotel, and there was an office there. I mean, where you could tell the person in the office who you were there to get, or the boys could say who they were there to pick up, because boys were not allowed above the ground floor under any circumstances. I can remember when people were moving in and out, and brothers and fathers had to come up and carry stuff, there'd be yelling all over the floor, "Man on third, man on third." And so you had to quick throw your clothes on or close the bedroom door or something.
I used to go there every night and study. And then if I wanted to read, in the sorority house, I loved it. I just loved it. I lived in it for 3 years. I had a wonderful time. But if you wanted to read and really have private time, you had to go to the Chubb Library. So I spent a lot of time over there.
When the ASTP was here, that's when they put all the Quonset huts that they put down, a couple of them right on the main campus for classrooms, just Army surplus stuff. And then all the Hog Island stuff, which you may have heard of, which was down what they call Jeff Hill now, we called Putnam Hill then. All the East Green buildings were not there yet. So that's where they put all the Quonset huts for housing. And they called it Hog Island because it was muddy down there all the time, and they didn't put cement walks in. They just had boardwalk things to keep your feet dry.
Dr. Baker had said that when the war was over, and this would be the European war, not the Japanese, which of course came 4 months later, he would ring the chimes would be rung, and we could come from wherever we were, whatever class, wherever, anywhere on the campus, and come to Memorial Auditorium for a service. And one day the chimes rang, and we all very quietly, people from all over, very quietly walked into Memorial Hall. The war was over. And that brings tears to my eyes still.
Right across from the present campus gate, where Baker Center is, where the old Baker Center is now, was an old square brick building called the Men's Union. On the ground floor, it had what was called the grill. You could go in there and have sandwiches, buy Cokes, whatever, and there was a great big dance floor. And that was where most of the student body hung out for just entertainment and fellowship and so forth. I can remember so well in January of 1946, going in there when school was first starting, and there were boys lined up around that dance floor like 4 or 5 deep, and everybody said, "What's this?" And it was just wonderful because look at all these guys. And of course 1945 is when everybody was mustered out, so they come second semester in 46, they were all coming back to school if they wanted to go to school. And the GI Bill, of course, there were boys that had grown up in the Depression that never had an inkling they would ever go to college. And here's the GI Bill, so of course we're going to college. And But it was great, and everything changed. Everything changed.
I think I was a junior by the time the math classes changed, and they had been all girls, and it was easier. And now they were all these former officers in their brown leather jackets and their officers' caps, and they were sitting in the front rows, and they were asking the professors all sorts of very difficult questions, and suddenly had to work. The pace speeded up dramatically. That was one thing I noticed. And, of course, the social life changed. There were men on campus.
As far as the shower or tub and toilet, we had to go upstairs for that, and we had a room on the ground floor. So I think the rest of the plumbing, other than that sink, there was only one for the whole upstairs rooms and downstairs rooms, of which there were maybe 20 of us living in that house. About our junior year or something, the Dior look came in when the hems went way down, and they had always just been knee length before. Clothes had been knee length, never short. And I remember getting a dress that year that was very flowing and long and feeling so stylish. Other than that, we wore sweaters and skirts and saddle shoes or loafers, penny loafers. What else? We had formal dances. The sororities had and fraternities had formal dances. And when they said formal, they meant formal. They were long dresses, you know. No, everybody had pearls. They weren't real, of course, but that was part of your costume, was pearls.
It was also the post-war time from, the World War II, which was considered the greatest generation today. You respected your elders, and you had manners, and if you came home and you didn't have acquired a few in college, then they thought you didn't learn much. At that time, only the one person worked, the man who worked, and the wages were a lot less, but everything cost a lot less.
It was certainly a society where you didn't go out if you didn't have a date. Date night was Friday and Saturday, and possibly church on Sunday. So you could go to the movies or out with the girls on Sunday night. Wednesday night was date night. And then if you dated somebody in a fraternity, they'd run over after their meeting and you would run uptown to the bars. They went to bars then too. But girls would not go into a bar without an escort. I wouldn't dream of going into it.
There was a lot of social life at Ohio University. And when I say that, I mean, you didn't even have to think what you want to do. Just like today, I know that they have many things. It's a long list. You pick and choose, and you have a lot of choices. And that's why I say many people, the students didn't go home on the weekends. They stayed in town. President Baker and his wife had 3 young children, and they were idolized. I mean, people loved them. The campus was smaller. We had in the 53 to 57, there was only about 4,300 students on campus. You knew your professors, the classroom, there were 30 in the class. And so as far as the activities that you'd go to were dances, they had formal dances, informal dances, lots of athletic events, which you go to. So, you have a pretty strong social life today, 60 years later almost, but we thought it was all that we needed, I mean, we didn't have to, and there were still bars in town, but you could drink at 18.
We were on the semester system then, but we had classes on a Saturday morning, and we had no nighttime classes. And I had excellent professors, I thought, who really, they expected a lot of you. And I know the thing that, as far as I was concerned, I never wanted to disappoint my parents, and I never wanted to disappoint those professors who had been so helpful. Now, I don't know, the only class I had that was all women was swimming, because when you had phys ed, we didn't have co-ed phys ed. So.
The dorms, of course, they had curfew. We were restricted as far as we had to be in by 10 o'clock during the week. And truthfully, it was great, because you knew then, boy, you had to study. And there were sometimes you'd have dates you didn't want to stay out any longer than that. You wanted to leave them, and you didn't have to make up excuses. You just knew you had to be at 10 o'clock at night. And I remember weekends we could stay out later until 12, but when they had the sesquicentennial in 1954, they let you stay out till 1:50, I think it was, which was really, an odd hour, but it was special because it was such a big thing.
And the men, there were very few dorms, only the barracks down in East Green. So they wanted to get in a fraternity. Now, fraternities have parties all the time, and they just didn't have a party with one group. They had dates. You had a date. You did everything with dates. So the girls got along a little bit better than the fellows who weren't in fraternities. But it was the social life, and also it was activities. They were all the people who served as editor of the Post, editor of the yearbook, and all the things like that in government, campus government and that sort of thing. So it was important to your way of life there. So sitting around singing all the different songs was a big pastime. And we sang all the fraternity and sorority songs, the campus songs, the other universities, old-fashioned songs that we had learned. So there was no place to go. Nobody had cars. There was no way you went anything. So if you wanted to do something, you had to make it yourself. My senior year, we had a float that says, "The calm before the storm." I remember this perfectly. And this beautiful girl we had, this blonde hair, her mother made this gorgeous flowing thing, and she stood in a seashell. And the rest of us on there were mermaids. We had green sequin tails, and we had green satin tops. And we all had our hair sprayed silver. They tried to get us in these tails. And of course, we didn't try them too far. Well, unfortunately, to get in the tail, you could not wear underwear at all. Nothing. Okay, so they put us on this float. Take something, put us on the float. Coming back and get us after the parade down by the stadium. Well, they didn't come. Nobody came. And so there we are, 4 of us sitting on the float, unable to take our tails off because we had nothing on under them. And nobody came, and the girl who was standing up said, "Well, I'm not going to stand around here because it was chilly." So she left. She just walked home. And we said, "Well, tell somebody to come for us." Well, it must have been an hour and a half before anybody came to get us off the float. But that was really very memorable that we couldn't get off the float.